What's going on, everybody? It's Horse Beef here. I want to talk about UFC 317. International Fight Week is finally upon us. We are in Ilia Topuria Fight Week. Finally, dude. I've been looking forward to this fight for a long time now. And the card is honestly pretty underwhelming for International Fight Week. It's kind of carried by the main card. But I'm excited. There are some underrated banger fights on this card. And let's just get into it, dude. And I will end my predictions off with my final prediction for Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. I'm sure you guys can predict who I'm picking here, right? Nico Price versus Jacoby Smith. And I'm just going to pick Jacoby Smith. I think he's going to knock out Nico Price. Although Nico's chin is weird, right? He takes a whole lot of damage. He's getting up there in age. He's very much weathered at this point. And Jacoby Smith has proven to hit like a fucking truck. So yeah, I'm just going to pick Jacoby Smith. But Nico Price is always capable of pulling off something, right? Because he is Nico Price and he is strange. I've seen him pull off more knockouts off of his back than on his feet. He doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. He is an anomaly of a fighter. And then we have Jonathan Deniz versus Alvin Hines. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I'm familiar with Alvin Hines because I'm not. I assume he's just another fat heavyweight. But Jonathan Deniz, I think, will KO him in the first round. This may be his first fight. I think it's his first fight in the UFC, man. And yeah, you're making your debut against a pretty dangerous striker like Jonathan Deniz. I think he's getting put out, dude, but I just don't care for these fat heavyweights anymore. Cedric Dumat, I thought he was going through some legal trouble, some trouble with the law, but he's on this card against Jackson McVey, another fighter that I'm not at all familiar with, and I think it's another fighter making his debut. So can Cedric Dumas finally pick up a win, right? You would assume against someone making their debut. So I'm just going to pick him, but I am hoping that Jackson McVey wins this one because that would be kind of funny now, wouldn't it? And those are the early prelims, not the most stacked early prelims, right? But then we get an underrated banger fight right here, man. We get Slava Claus, I believe, versus Terrence McKini. Now, it's a tough one because if this gets past the first round, I think Slava Claus will put it on him and get him out of there. And I always found Borchev to be kind of underrated, right? His skill set, he's a fun striker to watch. I enjoy Borchev. We've seen him go to war with some very good fighters, right? I believe Nazim Sadyakov and Borchev have gone to war before, and it was a sick fight. That's actually one of the most underrated fights of all time. I recommend if you're going to go back and watch a fight that you have never seen before, please watch Borchev versus Sadyakov. I'm pretty sure they went at it before in an absolute barn burner. But just like Borchev, Terrence McKinney is a very inconsistent fighter. It seems like he has to get you out of there in the first, and he's very much capable of doing that to anybody. He's very powerful. He even seems strong in the grappling too. Like in the first round, he can give it to anybody, right? Now this is so hard to pick, and Borchev, I feel like, has shown his age a bit. I think, I don't know. Is he an old man? He looks old as shit, and I feel like he's kind of declined recently. And Terrence McKinney has been in some decent form, I guess. Maybe he has some confidence going, and he will attack that first round finish. I do think he will. But I think if Borchev gets past the first, he might just put some hands on McKinney. This is a really tough one to pick, dude. But I ultimately, I'm going to go with Terrence McKinney. I think first round TKO. But it's tough, dude. And I don't want to count out Borchev because I actually really do like this dude. I think he's an underrated fighter, and he's been quite unfortunate, but has fought some killers, dude. But he got dropped by Chase Hooper. That's weird. That is weird. He got dropped by Chase Hooper and finished by him. It's a weird look, sure, but let's get on to the next one. Yeah. McKinney by first round TKO. Viviana Rajo versus Tracy Cortez. Oh my god, this is a banger, dude. And I don't even know. Flip of a coin, roll the dice. I think if Tracy Cortez comes in with the fake lashes, she's getting beaten here, I think. But if she comes in without the fake lashes, maybe locked in, maybe less worried about her appearance and more focused on her performance, she can pick up a win here. And if I remember correctly, I think Viviana Rajo is getting up there in age too. I could just be basing that off of her appearance, right? I mean, like, maybe that's incorrect, but I think she's getting up there in age. I don't know. I'm just going to pick Tracy Cortez. I don't give a shit about this fight. I really don't. I don't give a fuck. Oh, this one is a banger, dude. Hydra versus Jose Miguel Delgado. This is going to be a scrap, and I'm picking Hydra because I will pick Hydra over and over again for the rest of his career. This dude has a massive head. His chin, his jaw, I believe, rivals Drew Dober, right? To have that crimson chin moniker. I think that Hydra is one of the only fighters who can actually rival Drew Dober in that regard. Crazy chin, like he displays that in the fight. Crazy, crazy toughness and insane volume. This man kind of just walks forward and throws hooks at you. And I love it. I love every second of watching this man fight. And I don't know if there are many fighters in and around his particular rankings outside of the top 15. Like, there are fighters who will just snipe him, I believe, at 145 as he gets into the rankings. I think he'll take one really bad beating if he is able to make it into the top 15 that will maybe destroy his chin. I'm not too sure. But he's shown very little chinks in his armor being that insane chin of his. And his offense, it's just pure hooks, right? Very similar to like a John Lineker or Jessica Andrade or whatever. Man just loves a good hook. And I love watching him, dude. Hydra Mill is so sick. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. Like, he's not the most skilled fighter in the world, sure, but goddamn it, is he fun to watch. And like, Delgado is of course no slouch whatsoever, but I just love me some Hydra Mill. I do, and I'm picking him. I'm gonna pick him by decision. He just doesn't really have much power, right? That would be unfair if Hydra Mill had that chin and knockout power to go along with it. Holy shit, what happened? Here we go. Jack Hermanson versus RoboCop. Oh, a few months back, I believe I did hype Gregory Rodriguez as the guy to beat DDP, and that was right before his loss against Jared Cannonier, 40-year-old Jared Cannonier, by the way, where he gassed. I don't know if I worry about him gassing in this one. It's a 3-rounder. Gregory Rodriguez is built for 3-rounders. He just hits like a truck, and he's so fucking physically strong and so skilled, so technical in the grappling as well. And I think he has the advantage everywhere this fight goes. Jack Hermanson, I would only pick him potentially if this was a 5-rounder. In a 3-rounder, I don't see what he does to hurt Gregory. I don't see what he does to Gregory on the ground. He's been very inactive. Obviously, people will always choose Jack Hermanson to like fraud check people, I guess, because he has a history of doing that. He did it to Joe Pyfer, I suppose. But Gregory Rodriguez is no fraud. He's no fraud. I think he just has no gas tank, and I'm surprised he's even still fighting at middleweight, really, with that weight cut and the size of the man. I don't understand how he's still fighting here. I thought his next fight would be at 205, but he's still fighting at 185, and yeah, for me, man, he's way too much for Jack Hermanson. I understand the Hermanson pick, but I just don't see what Hermanson does to Gregory in a 3-round fight. It's looking bad. I think Gregory gets him out of there in the second round. It could be the first round too. I can see him finishing Jack in any round of this fight, 100%. Then we get Payton Talbot versus Felipe Lima. This is a sick one. This is a really sick fight. Now, obviously, Payton Talbot on paper will have the advantage on the feet. He just simply will. But Felipe Lima is a highly touted prospect for a good reason. He's very well-rounded. He's very technical everywhere. I actually like his striking. I think he's pretty good on the feet, although not like a Talbot, right? Talbot has a real striking pedigree. He does. Just go back and watch his performance against Cameron Simon. The dude was batting 100% on Simon's face that night. He just looked really good, really sharp. But I think Felipe is going to be too much for him. I think he'll mix it up on him. Talbot could have a moment, crack Felipe Lima at some point in this fight for sure. He always has that potential. But I just hate picking fighters based on a puncher's chance. And even though he has that chance, I don't think he'll land it. I don't think he'll take that chance. Felipe, I can see him submitting Talbot. I can see him winning this fight by decision. Maybe TKO, but I think if anyone's winning by KO, it'll be Talbot. But I'm going to pick Felipe Lima by second round submission. I think he will sub Payton Talbot in this one. Then we get Brandon Royval versus Joshua Van. And you guys know I'm a big fan of Joshua Van. I'm also a fan of Raw Dog. I think Raw Dog is a beast. I think he's underrated, and he's fought the best of the best. And that is a massive advantage that he has over Joshua Van. Right? He has the high-level experience. He's been in there with the best of the best. And he put up a great performance against Brandon Moreno and very much deserved to win that fight. Like, completely stifled Moreno in that fight. Moreno couldn't land shit. He was just spamming overhands, dude. He reduced Moreno to an overhand spamming bum on that night. Obviously, Moreno's very good. But Joshua Van has momentum. Royval kind of does too, right? He beat Tatsuro Taira. I think Van would beat Tatsuro Taira as well. But man, this is a real tough fight to pick. I just know this is going to be a banger. This is going to be a banger. Royval will try and keep Joshua Van off of him with the jab. Joshua Van will be trying to get on the inside, landing body shots, right? Big, long combinations he likes to land, right? Highest strikes per minute in the entire UFC. And he does have the momentum. And he fought 2 weeks ago. He took no damage, right? So you can't bring that up as a negative for Joshua Van. It's like, oh, he's turning around too quickly. But it wasn't a war. He beat up Bruno Silva. If anything, that'll raise his confidence, right? Going into this fight here. You know what, dude? I'm picking Joshua Van to keep the gravy train going. That's what I'm picking. I'm picking Joshua Van to keep the run going. And the best part is that if he goes out there and beats Brandon Royval, which I think he will, he's set up for a title shot. He's next up. That would literally put him as the #1 contender in the division. How amazing would that be? But this is also the kind of fight that I can see him running into yet another roadblock, right? Because he ran into that with Charles Johnson. Now, obviously, people will point to that fight and say, well, if Charles Johnson knocked him out, then MMA math states that Brandon Royval has to beat him. Every fight is different. Every fight is different, and Joshua Van has been coming in here fight over fight with clear improvements every single time. I just don't buy it. I don't buy that just because Charles Johnson beat the guy that now Brandon Royval has to beat him. I don't buy it. Joshua Van, I think, will win this fight by decision. I'm not sure if he has the power to put out Brandon Royval, but then again, we've seen Brandon Royval hurt before. I think Joshua Van has that speed, right? He has the speed to get it done, and he does have the speed advantage here with the hands. Man, Brandon Royval, I just think, if anything, he'll give Joshua Van an issue if he ties up with him, right? If he gets him to the ground somehow, even though Joshua Van has shown really, really elite takedown defense. If Brandon does get him down there, right, because we saw that Ray Surai was able to get him down with a very crafty throw, right? Like, it's not like he was able to get Joshua Van down every single time. It was just a very beautifully executed takedown. And I don't know if Brandon Royval has that in the locker. Like, these Japanese grapplers like Ray Surai and Tatsuro Taira, they have very unique ways of getting the fight to the ground. But I do back Joshua Van's ability to keep this fight on the feet. You know, Brandon Royval is not the best wrestler, and he's not the most physically strong fighter in the world. I think Joshua Van will keep it on the feet, and it'll be a pretty closely contested striking battle, right? Royval is pretty underrated with his hands, and he has that very long, wiry frame as well, and he's great at using it. Those knees up the middle do worry me as well, and he's very wild, and he can land anything. So for me, this is the closest fight on the card. Easily the toughest one to pick, but I am picking Joshua Van by decision simply because I want that to happen. Then we get Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. I know a lot of people will pick Moicano just based on the fact that he's in better form, or a better run of form, I guess, even though he did lose the fight to Islam Makhachev. But I feel like a lot of people don't take stock away from Moicano for that. It was short notice. That fight may as well have not even happened. But I do feel like Beneil Dariush is just better than Moicano. I think he's just better, and he's being very much underrated here simply because he got knocked out a couple of times, right? He got finished by Arman Tsarukyan, he gets finished by Charles Oliveira, so he's only really lost to the best of the best. And I think Beneil Dariush, what he's shown is that he is super, super high level, just an unfortunate run that he's on, and I think he's just better. Like I said, I think he's better than Moicano. I think he's better on the feet. I think he carries more power on the feet, and I don't think Moicano really has the power in the hands to just starch Beneil like that. And if it becomes a test of skill, I believe Beneil beats him everywhere this fight is. On the feet, if it gets to the ground, we've seen Beneil can scramble with the best. We've seen him scramble and even get the better of someone like Mateusz Gamrot on the ground, right? Such a great chain wrestler. Beneil dealt with him quite easily, and on the feet too. I'm picking Beneil. I think Beneil's going to get this one done. I don't know if he'll finish Moicano. I think it'll go all 3 rounds, but it should be a fun fight, right? Wherever it goes, it'll be evenly contested, potentially, but I think Beneil just has Renato Moicano beat in the skill department. He's very underrated, and I think he'll get this one done, dude. And that'll be by decision, of course. But then we get the co-main event, dude. Alexander Pantosia versus Kai Kara-France. And these guys have fought before, but I'm not really going to base anything here off of what happened in their first fight. Pantosia won that one. I think this one will be a bit different. It'll be a tough one for Pantosia. Pantosia will have to come in here with that chin in fantastic form, because he's going up against potentially the hardest hitting flyweight currently fighting right now at flyweight. It was Figgy, now it's Kai Kara-France. This man does hit like a truck for 125, right? He does throw bombs, and he can threaten the chin of Pantosia, and that's the only way I see him winning this one. I see him potentially catching Pantosia on the chin, but Pantosia is one of the most underrated fighters of all time. The disrespect, I look at the pound for pound rankings, I see this man still underneath guys like Jack Della Maddalena, who just won the fucking belt. Now, you guys know I love JDM, but how is he above Alexander Pantosia with all these title defenses, his dominance, his run of wins that he's on right now? The man has been disrespected over and over again. I think he's going to win this one too. I do. You're in there for 5 rounds against Alexander Pantosia. He's going to find you at some point, right? You know, whether that be a big wild shot on the button for Pantosia that drops Kai Kara-France, maybe takes his back, submits him, or just his forward marauding style, right? He doesn't really need to even get the takedown. We saw that against a guy like Alex Perez, for example. He just marauds forward with his chin pointed downwards, head pointed downwards, eating everything you got for him just so he can get his arms around you, because he knows that if he gets his arms around any of these other 125ers, they're finished. Nobody can hang with him on the ground like that, I don't believe. He knows that, and I think Pantosia will get it done once again by submission. I'm going to say in the 3rd round, but Kai could definitely win this one by knockout. Obviously, Pantosia's style, it leaves a lot to be desired in the defense department. And like I keep saying, man, against the hardest hitting fighter in your division, he has to come out here a little different. I don't want to see him just walking into the fire with his head first. It just does not seem like the best strategy against Kai Kara-France. But it's worked for him up to this point, and you know what? If he's going to come out like that again, I think it'll work again. I think it'll work once again. But we could see him hurt in this fight, 100%. But Pantosia, third round submission, I think in particular, his signature rear naked choke once again. But then we get into the fucking main event, man. Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. There's been much debate going around about this fight, whether it should be as one-sided on the odds as it is. I think last time I checked, Ilia Topuria was like a minus 500 favorite, which I think is a little bit ridiculous considering Charles Oliveira's track record. He's very high level, and this is also Ilia's first fight at 155. But I think it's the open workouts, right? People getting to see how fast he looks, right? How fast he looks, how thick he looks at 125. And the way that he speaks, man, he speaks with such confidence. I think just his words alone and the way that he speaks affects the odds, right? It's crazy, man. Ilia Topuria is a phenom. He really is. But I do think that the odds kind of make sense in a way too, because I don't see how Charles wins this one. I'm not too sure if I see it, dude. I don't see how he knocks out Ilia. He's too picky with his shots. Like I said in my last video regarding this fight, right? The sarcastic video about Ilia Topuria being short. I said it. Charles Oliveira is way too picky with his shots. It's a blind right hand or a naked right hand, naked left hook, or it's a jab on its own. I don't see the jab really doing much for Charles here. He doesn't really have much of a snappy jab at all. His jab doesn't really achieve much for Charles on the feet. Doesn't really use it for anything. He just kind of uses it to paw at his opponents. It's not that snappy, not that powerful, not that stiff. I don't really see the jab troubling Ilia too much, and he has to watch out throwing that jab because Ilia loves countering with the right hand over the top over that jab, right? That's actually one of his favorite shots to actually throw. He spammed it against Volk, threw it a lot against Max Holloway. He loves countering the jab with the right overhand. He does, right? And that long, tall Muay Thai stance of Charles Oliveira is only going to open up the body, right? Those body shots from Ilia, I believe, will be landing all night long, or at least as long as Charles Oliveira lasts in there. Obviously, the way that he keeps that front leg nice and loose and bouncy, as a Muay Thai fighter would, that may take the calf kick away from Ilia Topuria. He may have to set it up, but then again, I can see him baiting that reaction from Charles to try and evade the low kick, and then comes over the top while Charles is off balancing on one foot, cracking with a right hand or a left hook or something. And you just look at the open workout. Watch his open workout when he's moving around with Guram Kutataladze, where he's mimicking Charles Oliveira's movements. You can see the game plan right in front of you. It was the obvious game plan. We knew this was going to be the game plan for Ilia Topuria. It's no surprise whatsoever. But he kind of just confirmed it with this open workout here. He's going to punish Charles Oliveira, his kicks, right? Every single time Charles Oliveira throws a kick, we're going to see Ilia close the distance and punish him with body shots, big combinations. Charles Oliveira tries to reach into clinch. We're going to see him once again. Ilia Topuria is going to punish him with 3, 4, 5 punches to the body. And I just don't think that Charles Oliveira makes it out of 2 rounds here. A lot of people are predicting first round KO. I could see that happening. Now, of course, I have to speak on the grappling threat of Charles Oliveira. Obviously, if he gets Ilia in clinch range, if he pushes him against the fence, I think we're going to see Charles attack a lot of submissions, right? He's going to be attacking guillotines, going to be attacking darces. If he gets the back of Ilia, of course, you don't want that, right? But Ilia's grappling pedigree, I think, is being underrated here, right? Because he uses it mostly defensively to keep the fight on the feet so he can land his big shots, because he simply just prefers to knock your head off instead of taking you down, whatever. But I think even if the fight does get to the ground, if it does get to the ground, I think it'll be because Ilia drops Charles Oliveira in those first couple of rounds. And like I've said in my last video regarding this fight, once again, if he knocks down Charles, he's going to follow Charles to the ground and finish him. He won't make Charles stand up once again. Ilia, I believe, will attack some kind of a submission on him just to make that statement of submitting Charles Oliveira. But I think either way it goes, dude, this fight will be a finish. If Charles finishes Ilia, that's crazy. That is crazy, and that would be incredible, obviously, for Charles Oliveira. But I am obviously going to predict a second round KO. I think it'll take a bit for Ilia Topuria to get that range on Charles. I think everyone, expecting Charles Oliveira to come out here walking forward aimlessly like he usually does, just forward pressure. I think he'll come out differently here. I don't think it'll be that simple just because Charles Oliveira walks forward in every fight. Obviously, you would expect him to come in here with some kind of a game plan to deal with Ilia Topuria in particular. And for me, that game plan is just not walking into his shots. You don't want to be walking into his shots. Ilia Topuria hits like a fucking truck. Everyone tries to compare. Like, oh, yeah, but Charles Oliveira, he didn't get knocked out by Dustin. He didn't get knocked out by Justin Gaethje. So Ilia Topuria obviously isn't going to knock him out. Get fucked. Ilia Topuria hits harder than all of these dudes at 155. And it's not because of his size or because he just throws big shots. No, it's because of his technique. That shit is flawless. Compare the way he punches to the way someone like Justin Gaethje punches. Just because Justin Gaethje makes big noises when he throws his shots. All that bullshit. And he throws his flappy arm punches. He lands with his palm a lot of the time on his opponents, right? He just throws everything into his shots. And that's why they appear to be big shots, because they are. Because he loads up. But Ilia's not loading up, right? He finds you. He throws his shots like a boxer throws their shots. And that type of sharpness is exactly why he's so dangerous. Because nobody at 155 possesses that sharpness, including Charles Oliveira. Now, of course, he has a great right cross, a great left hook. They look pretty. But he just throws them on their own. He doesn't really set them up. He's not throwing combinations to get Ilia to move his head this way so he can crack him with that shot. He's not that type of a fighter, but he can come in like that. And I expect him to come in like that. And one thing I expect 100% is for Charles to try and land that same shot that he landed against Beneil Dariush, right? The right hand disguising the right high kick. I can see him throwing that. And I think Ilia will be ready for it. But if he is to land a shot that hurts Ilia, I can see it being that one, right? Charles did throw it very well, and he is capable of landing a nice head kick, right? Front kicks up the middle, knees up the middle will be a danger for Ilia with that low stance that he has. But I think he'll be prepared for all this, dude. And I believe it'll take maximum 2 rounds. I think he'll do it in the second, but if he does it in the first, I mean, I can see that happening as well. I can see Ilia getting him out of there in any of the first 4 rounds. If it gets to the 5th, then maybe I can see it becoming a war of attrition. But I just don't see that happening, dude. So, yes, Ilia Topuria by 2nd round KO. I simply think he has too much for Charles. I don't think that Charles is going to come out there and suddenly be Sean Strickland, you know what I mean, and have impeccable defense. Or Ilia Topuria with impeccable defense. I just simply don't see that happening. I don't think so. Like, the way that Charles has to go out there and beat Ilia, he kind of does have to pressure him backwards. And that will entail him getting hit, right? He wasn't supposed to go into the fire against Dustin Poirier because Dustin Poirier hits like a truck, yet he did that, right? He wasn't supposed to walk into the fire with Justin Gaethje because Justin Gaethje apparently hits like a truck, but he still did that, and he got dropped by both of them, but he just overcame it, right? If he does that again against Ilia, man, it's going to be a short night. I do think so. It's going to be a short night, and anyone who thinks that his power just won't translate at 155, I believe you're in for a rude awakening here. But yeah, that's my prediction. 2nd round KO for Ilia Topuria. And that does conclude my thoughts on the entire card. I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it'll be a banger of a card. 100%. At least the main card. But even some of the prelims, man. Very underrated. Slept on fights. Cannot wait, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think, who you're picking, how you think each fight will, and whatever, man. Whatever your thoughts are on the video, on the card. I appreciate your thoughts as always, and I appreciate you watching. And I'll see you on the next one.